This is not a travel video, this is not a commercial, this is a real person story.
ما فماش حاجة مستحيلة في الدنيا، فالإنسان ينجم يبني روحه بروحه، معناها بحاجة بسيطة ينجم يخرج روحه من الفقر، من الاسترس، من كل شيء. المهم هو يخدم، يسعى ويخدم وربي يبارك له إن شاء الله.
Your role as a documentary filmmaker is to capture the truth. So I just came back from a documentary shoot, and on the way back I was discussing with a friend some important tips, that we should always keep in mind as solo filmmakers. So in this quick video I wanted to reiterate those tips and maybe remind some of you of these three main things that we should keep in our head while preparing or on set. One of the most important things is to show and don't tell. As we all know, documentaries are filled with interviews, and the trend of the last few years is to make someone sit in a room and have 3 to 4 lights, 3 to 4 cameras, 5 or 6 people, in the staff and the sound guy, and etc., etc. And it can work in some scenarios, but most human-centric documentaries where you follow one subject and you try to tell a story that is very deep, that is very intimate, sometimes those kind of setups don't usually work. And what I mean about show, don't tell, is that show that person in their daily life, show their struggle without talking about it, show their ambitions, show them, talking with other people, like with their families, and the camera is just like a bystander who just witnessing the whole thing. I'm gonna take this last documentary that I'm working on. I've already shared the teaser of it. I think 2 or 3 people watch it. So you can pause this video, watch it, and come back again. So basically the story is about this person who is paraplegic, who has muscle atrophy, and he can only tilt his head a bit and move his hands. But the story is not really about his physical condition, and it's the obvious route to go about this kind of stories is to showcase how his daily life is difficult, the financial issues, etc., etc. But I wanted to document something that is more near and dear to his heart. He's a drone artist, so he films incredible drone footage. He used a basic small drone, one of the cheapest drones you can buy. And he lives on a very small island in North Africa. So what I wanted to say, most of the filming days were just following him around in his small island, interacting with people, interacting with his family, of him doing important work with his drone to document the life and tradition of his people and his culture. And I didn't have any of the fancy setups with the big lights and having a crew with me or all of those things. But it's very important to have those takes where the subject is just existing in his daily routine, and all of those things translate in a very interesting, very relatable footage, because the most important thing that you should convey in a documentary film is authenticity and relatability. I mean, it has to be authentic, because most people's living room doesn't have 3 to 4 Amaran or aperture lights and the gaffer tapes everywhere and the cables, and it doesn't really look like that. I mean, most people have a small light bulb in the ceiling, and You have to, play with the window light and play with the experiment with the angles, etc., etc. But it doesn't have to not look cinematic. You can actually make it look really cinematic. You just have to focus just a little bit on the composition and have a coherent style that goes all throughout the film. It's not just capturing a couple of interesting looking frames and having that in your teaser and sharing that on Instagram stories so that people say, oh, you're a great filmmaker. And I think the most difficult thing to do in a documentary film is to have like a consistent look that goes throughout the film, and having the camera not interact maybe too much, or not having the camera as a subject in the film. I think the camera should be there to witness and should maybe translate the emotions and the feelings that the subject is feeling or that subject represents. So it's very important to show and not tell. Or maybe even sometimes you can show and tell later. And I'll show some footage of the interviews that we did. We just had the subject do his thing, the same spot that he goes every day. We were just having like a discussion and, leave them be and just, send the question and let them, talk their mind out of it. I mean, don't interrupt, let them go in their flow, because the most important thing, they need to forget that you're there filming. They need to think of you as like a guest in their house, or as a friend with whom they're sharing this experience. And this is the most amazing thing about working in documentaries, that you get to learn people's intimacy, learns people's stories. And I think you are the person who's gaining the most. I mean, not just the recognition or financial gain, but you're getting to learn people in a way that you usually don't get to, you see? So it's very important to show and don't tell, and you have to be very specific or what you want to show, how you want to show it. And for this documentary specifically, I didn't use any zoom lenses, for example. The classic way of filming documentaries is to have like a nice zoom, like a 24-105 or something like that. And I only kept most of the film was shot on a 24mm equivalent lens and a 75mm equivalent lens. I used the 75mm lens to capture some details, to capture some B-roll, some establishing shots, but 80% of the film on a 24mm lens. And I used that lens, maybe I think this should subject of a whole nother video, because it's not as wide as you get a lot of distortion. You still get some distortion, but it's not as heavy hitting like a 16mm lens or a 14mm lens. And it's wide enough that you can get really close to the subject, and it can give you a great sound when you have like a mic on top of the camera, because you're always at like an arm length to your subject, which is because once you give them the lavalier mic and you put it behind their clothes, blah, 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 and they start to become very conscious and wary that, they are being recorded. So they start to, switch their language. They're not being their true self in that moment. And your role as a documentary filmmaker is to capture the truth. I mean, you have to, get their authentic self, which is really hard and it takes a lot of time. But once you get into the habit of just, following your subject, and sometimes I even follow them for a couple of days, I don't film anything. I just have the camera with me, I don't film anything. I'm just another bloke with them, sharing the day with them and talking about, stuff, either fluffy things or football or whatever, but become more friendly and not just do it as a way to trick them to give you some nice interview sound bites, but it's because you have to enjoy it. I mean, you have to enjoy getting to know people on that deeper level, and use the camera as a testimonial tool to capture those events. So having a handheld look, not too fancy movements, maybe relying on some window lights, using leading lines to compose, don't have a gimbal and do all of those fancy. This is not a travel video, this is not a commercial, this is a real person story. And usually like a basic handheld movement can be very effective in conveying that. I know I remembered or not, and it's not really scripted or any, I'm not following any YouTube guidelines here, but I hope this gets the message across. And I'm just repeating what I will be saying when I'm having a coffee with a friend who also does this and we talk about it. So the second thing that goes hand in hand with show and not tell is take longer takes. I know sometimes we worry about how many gigabytes the SD card is having, and sometimes we go to a shoot and we don't have that many hard drives, and but you have to take longer takes. I mean, don't take just 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there, 15 seconds there. Sometimes if you just film like a sequence and you know that what the person is doing, and if it's just preconceived in your head, then usually it's fine. But for example, in this last shoot, I have a take that is 25 minutes. And the scene is that this subject with his wife and his daughter having breakfast. And it's very interesting to show, because he cannot feed himself. So his daughter and his wife they are feeding him. And instead of, bringing a doctor, talking about his muscle atrophy problems and tons of physical challenges, just showing that, not only you convey, authenticity, because this is real, this is what happens every morning, and it's a joyous activity for them. So there's laughter, there's the family warmth, you can see the awesome relationship that they have as a family, where he is not a burden to his family, because if you show them as a guy who is struggling physically, etc., maybe you can feel, this guy is a burden. Living with him will be such a heavy task. But when you see when you see this scene and you see how this family interact with him, and it's a little bit funny. It has some backlight from the windows, and I had the door open to have another light source, so the light is nice. I used 70 millimeter lens, so it's very, very zoomed in, and it's because I wanted to look a little bit romantic, and I didn't want to have the 24 millimeter lens, because I want to respect a little bit that intimacy, because if I was super close, I think the daughter will become to focus on the camera and to start to play with me and to say, because I have a big head, I'm a big person, so it will be very how do you say, it will take her out of the moment. So having that quick reaction and changing the lens at the same time, and I was sitting back with my back on the wall, and once I saw the scene starts to play out, because I was sitting there for almost an hour. I was having some discussion with them, and then I took myself out so to have to forget that I was present, and I was literally moving my face towards the wall. So I was not really interacting at all. I was fiddling with my phone. I was, doing some other stuff. And if they wanted to ask me to eat, I already ate. So once I saw that the scene is playing, then I capture it. And when I saw them and I made them watch the scene at the end of the day, I think they were really, really happy with it, because it's a nice memory that they will cherish, hopefully for years to come. And this is also sometimes the important thing about making documentaries is you have to always think about, this is not just for you. This is I think you're gaining from the experience, but it's a huge responsibility to film someone's intimacy, and it will be shared either in theaters or online. So it's a responsible. You have to be responsible so that you show them like in the best light possible. You show them in their true self, and they have to feel proud when they see that. Even though we will show the struggles, we will show the challenges and all of those things, but at the end of the day, it's not also just to glorify the person, but to make them true. When they see themselves in the film, they are proud of themselves, because you have to also challenge them to do things, and you have to challenge them to pursue whatever the objective that they're doing. And once you get that on the whole film, I think it will create a nice memory for them in years to come. And also, the public, when they see the film, they will also be entertained, they will share laughter, they will learn about new things that they haven't knew before. They will get to visit a place they have never visited before. So all of those things. So it's like a triangle of a win-win-win situation. So do not be afraid to take longer takes, because sometimes it's a little bit disheartening when you see a scene unfolding and you don't capture it, and you say like, oof, I missed that moment. And usually in documentary films, you miss 80% of the moments, and you have to work with the 20% that you managed to take. And so this is why sometimes this type of project takes a lot of time, takes a lot of patience, etc., etc. And the other tip that sort of negates the previous one is that referring back to some advice that I saw online from Werner Herzog, where he said,
And I see young filmmakers who come excitedly at me and they say, oh, I shot 450 hours, my heart sinks. We are not garbage collectors, we are filmmakers.
So you don't have to, just film, till the end of day. And this is what happens sometimes when you really don't have a clear idea on what your documentary will be looking. I think for us, I think the gift that we have is that we're able to sit on our own and close our eyes and start to visualize the documentary, start to preconceive of how it will look like, what we want the story to be, and then when you go on the ground and start to capturing, you already have storyboarded the whole thing in your head. If you don't do those things, you will just be filming nonstop. Sometimes it can work, sometimes it doesn't, and you were doing that at the peril of the hundreds and hundreds of terabytes. If you can afford it, then why not? But you won't have a very consistent look. You won't have, the camera will be pointing at anything and everything, and it won't have any consistency. And usually what I see in most documentaries, they emulate each other look. I mean, if you see all of the latest documentaries, there's a specific look, to it, with the nice light and the red cameras, and it doesn't have to be that way, and sometimes it's discouraging for beginners when they see those kind of documentaries. They say like, oh, I cannot afford to do this. But no, I chose to film this on a Fuji X-T4 and a couple of lenses, and I think it's one of the cheapest setups you can have. And even I only spent, I don't know, maybe like $500 or more for expenses to go here and there. And so you can film documentaries and not spend a lot of money, and you can make them look expensive without spending all of the money on gear, on stuff, because I think authenticity in the image, and once you know how to manipulate natural light and you understand how to move and sway the camera, it can look, as they say, cinematic. to sum up those couple of tips, so take longer takes when you can, when you see a whole scene unfolding, but don't film way too much. I mean, it's very important. Sometimes I storyboard things, but I don't. I think it's for the habit. Sometimes you storyboard the whole thing in your head, and you know exactly when you want to take it. But sometimes you can't really risk that, and especially because I was lucky. This kind of the story I'm working on right now, it's not really super difficult to film. It's not one of those stories where you're filming something that is moving very quickly, or there's a lot of things happening at the same time, where it's a story that has multi subjects. It's not that complicated, so I don't really have to storyboard it to the T, but it's very important to choose a certain look that is motivated by the story and have that, flow across the film. I'm actually preparing like a whole guide on how I shot this film, and it's like a toolkit for you guys to help you, in your projects, and how to think and how to prepare the interview questions and how to make sure that you gain the trust of your subject, getting access, all of those things. I've been working on it for the past few weeks, and hopefully, I think the next month or something, I will share it here. So to sum up, I mean, you have to show, don't tell, or show as much as possible and then tell. Take longer takes. Make sure that your scenes are authentic or relatable, and give time to your subject to unfold in front of the camera. Have the camera as a testimonial tool to capture life unfolding in front of your subject. But at the same time, don't overshoot. Have a clear idea in your head. What do you want to capture? How do you want to capture it? When do you want to capture it? And the bonus tip, this is most important thing and most obvious, be patient. These kind of projects take a lot of time. And for it, many things can happen. For example, I hurt my back. One time I went there were some problems. I couldn't film. The weather, politics, war, financial issues. You have no idea what things can happen that will set your project to be paused or something like that. So you have to be patient, and every day, like, spend a few minutes on your own and try to picture it, like dream about this subject, get obsessed by it a bit, start to visualize it. How do you want it to look? Like for example, for this documentary film, my two inspirations have nothing to do with this kind of films, but there's this documentary called Notturno. I will show some images of it. It's a silent documentary. There isn't really one subject who is speaking, but it shows the post-war effects on the MENA region. They filmed in Iraq, they filmed in Afghanistan, they filmed in all of those things, and most of the shots are, on a tripod or a following or a brief tracking shots, but it looks really amazing. And when you look at it, there isn't really someone who's telling you the story. This is like the purest form of show and not tell. So this documentary, like, really, when you look at it, I mean, when you watch the whole thing, you actually feel the stress and perhaps the glimmer of hope of countries in a post-war scenario. And the second inspiration for me was this film called Perfect Days. It's a superb film, and maybe I should make like a whole video on it, but I think a lot of people on YouTube already made that. If I find something that has not been said, I will share it. But for me, I took this film as inspiration because it's not an overly sophisticated film. Doesn't have a deep plot. Doesn't have one of the agacha moments or one of those, oh wow. The storyline is very linear. It gets much more deeper than that, but I don't want to really spoil the film. You have to watch it. But what I've got out of it, it reminds you of the simplicity of life and how we should just, be ingrained in the present and not really look back at the past, not really also look too much forward to the future, but just be here, enjoy the now, and whatever happens that is outside of our control. Found there's some relatability between the subject I'm filming and that film, is that this person is not really thinking way too much to the future, is not really being brought down by his difficult past. He's just enjoying, his daily routine with his family and his art, and just, existing, just enjoying life as it is. So I was like, this is really interesting to show, because sometimes we try to get super fancy with our films and have to look for complex narratives and plots and subplots, etc., etc. And those films and those documentaries sometimes are super amazing to watch. But on the flip side, it's really nice to have something much more calmer, much more poetic. And when you watch it and go back home, you feel good, you feel energized, you feel like sort of in love. And this is a great emotion to provide your viewers with. And hopefully I'll be able to accomplish this with this documentary. And it has been for me like really amazing to get to know this person, to become a friend of the family, etc., etc. So yeah, so I really hope that you guys are working on some documentary films and stuff. And if you do, feel free to share it on a comment or send me a message. I'm very happy to discuss it, and perhaps we can be friends. So see you next time. Bye bye.